Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Brindleton Bay, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack of Sims 4 Cats and Dogs, and I'm going to be building a modern family farmhouse. So this house ends up having 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's built on a 40 by 40 lot. Now this week I thought I'd give myself a little bit of a challenge, and that challenge was to try and build a modern farmhouse in The Sims, because somehow I've never built a modern farm before, because normally whenever I've built farms in the past, I've more so gone towards, like more traditional, quiet English cottagey kind of farms, if you get my drift, like very traditional looking farms. But I've just never attempted to build a modern farmhouse. Part of the reason is I live in England and I have got farms around me, but they're all like proper old English farms, they're not like a modern farmhouse. So on my day-to-day going about my business, I don't really ever see houses like this, and so maybe that's part of the reason why I've never built one. But funny enough, this whole entire video was inspired by my video which I built last week, which was a coastal cottage in the world of Windenburg, which if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a card on the screen and you can go ahead and watch it whenever. You don't have to watch that first or anything. It was more so I said something in that video which kind of like set something off in my mind to actually think, hang on, why don't you do that? Basically, in that video, I was building this little coastal cottage on the beach in Windenburg, and I did these like little roof beams in the roof to make it look like it was holding the roof up, kind of like a structure for the roof. And I ended up using these curtain rod pieces that we got from the Desert Lux kit, and I was saying in that video, I feel like using these as support beams could be so customizable, because you can really just get into all the different swatches that you want to use. Like you can change up the whole entire color palette of the house, because the little curtain rod pieces that I use, you can change the swatches of them, so they come in like black, grey, loads of different brown swatches. And I literally said in that video, like for instance, if you wanted to build like a modern farmhouse, I'd use these exact same beams and put them in black, and then it would kind of work that way. And then as I said that, I literally made a mental note in my head thinking, okay, I maybe should attempt to build a modern farmhouse, because somehow you haven't built one. And then yeah, that is basically the challenge that I gave myself this week, and this is how it turned out. And do you know what's really funny as well? I literally mentioned a modern farmhouse in my previous video, because I was talking about the support beams and how we could use them in a black swatch and it would work really well for a modern farmhouse. I didn't even end up using them in this house. I do end up using beams, but I end up using some wooden beams, which was kind of the complete opposite story that I wanted to do last week. Like it was kind of like a polar opposite thing, but either way, it inspired this build, and yeah, I'm really proud of the way it turned out. So I hope you guys like it. But anyway, getting on and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So you can see that I've pretty much put the whole main structure of the house. I've already come in and I've done the wallpapering, the roofing, and now I'm just going around and playing about with some window placement. In terms of the house's colour scheme, you might notice it ends up being very white, black, brown, and then kind of grey as well. Now the wallpapers that I've used, if you're curious, the majority of them are from base game. I used 2 which were from 2 different expansion packs. One of them is a white paneling. You don't really see it in the house. I use it in kind of like a bump out in the back garden, but then this really beautiful kind of like oaky brown wallpaper that is from Seasons. Honestly, could count on one hand the amount of times that I've used that wallpaper. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't really get too much use in my game. But I do want to mention that I was looking at a picture when I was building this that I found on Pinterest. I'll find the picture and I'll pop it up on the screen now. Again, where I was building something that is a little bit out of my comfort zone, just not something that I see on the day-to-day, I really needed something as kind of like a bit of a starting point, just to kind of get me going in terms of how do I actually build this, because I don't know. I don't walk to the shops and see modern farmhouses. I just see semi-detached British houses like 9 times out of 10. So I really needed kind of like a starting point. And whenever I'm building something that is a little bit out of my comfort zone, I heavily rely on Pinterest, Google. Sometimes I even push the boat out and go to like Rightmove or something, just to find different pictures of real life houses, just so I can kind of get ideas off. I was looking at this picture and I didn't want to more so create the actual whole entire thing. Like I wasn't trying to replicate the colour scheme. You can probably tell that, because the colour scheme in the original picture is very white, and it's very white wallpaper, blue roof. I didn't want to do that in the game, because I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's just my reshade, but The Sims 4 can be very blue sometimes, and I feel like if I was to build a white house and then have a blue roof, just the game's lighting just can make it look very blue and grey, and it's not what I wanted for this house. But in terms of the actual structure of the house, I was very much inspired by this picture that I found on Pinterest, and just tried to not replicate it to a T, but, you know, just take parts of it, take elements and kind of follow like a similar roof line. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way this house turned out. But anyway, getting on from that and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm just playing around with this front garden area. Currently, I've got this really big snowy escape door. It's kind of like a garage door. I try and use it to look like a garage door. In literally like a matter of minutes, even seconds, I am going to switch that out and change it to a more like barn looking door, which is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. You know, I really did like the original snowy escape door that I placed down, but something that I found when I actually raised the house up to be on a foundation and it was a little bit higher, there was just too much empty space above the door, and so I needed to find something that would kind of mask over all of this wallpaper space. And then I remembered in my head, we've actually got these tiny little doors that, funny enough, your Sims can't get through, but your Sims cat or dog, and I think also toddler, can get through. So your Sims won't be able to walk through the garage door from like the front of the house, but on the inside of the house there is like a little separate door kind of going into the garage utility area. And yeah, I basically used a little cat door or like a little dog door, sized up, used it a garage door, and it works absolutely fine. I have done this before in the past, but the thing is, one of my terrible traits is I often forget that we've actually got these doors in the game, because whenever I place down a back door for like your Sims to walk out, I just always think, you know, the dog or the cat can go through that door. I don't personally have a cat myself. I have a dog, but Dave just goes through the normal back door in the back garden. So I don't ever think to actually put like a cat flap into my build or something. So yeah, I often forget that that's even a thing. But yeah, we do actually have tiny little miniature doors that animals can get through. And I also think, off memory, toddlers can crawl through them as well. But yeah, don't quote me on that. But on the inside as well, it does end up being an actual garage, which I did decide to cut out the footage for it, just because on the actual inside of it, there only ends up being 2 gameplay things. There ends up being the woodworking table, and then also the seasons decorations box. And then I just filled the rest of the space out with like shelving units, spare tyres. I plopped a tractor into the middle of the room because I feel like the middle of the room just felt very empty. And so I don't know if you're familiar, but with the Cottage Living expansion pack, in the live edit menu, there's this little rustic tractor, and so I plopped that down into the garage room as well. It just added too much time onto the video, because in the actual garage space, next to the woodworking table, I spent so much time going through like the debug menu, trying to find all these different like hammers and saws and tape measures and, you know, like the odd pencil that's dropped on the floor. And so it was really time consuming. Added like an extra 3 minutes onto the video, and I thought, well, it doesn't really need to be in the video because there's only, like I said, the woodworking table and the seasons box in terms of actual gameplay stuff in there. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to cut it out. There'll be screenshots of it at the end of the video. So yeah, hopefully you guys don't mind that I cut that out. But like I said, there'll be screenshots of it. But as well as that, on the inside of this house, there ends up being a part dining room and then part playroom. I basically wanted there to be somewhere in this house where all of the kids in the household could like play together. Their bedrooms aren't the biggest, like, don't get me wrong, they're not tiny, but the kids' room, one of the rooms is 2 like kids share it. They've got bunk beds in there and they don't have a ton of toys. And so I thought, I want to make like a little playroom in this house, but then I didn't want it to be like a playroom just filled with all the different like activity tables and violins and stuff. And so I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it so it's part breakfast room and then part playroom, so in that way your Sims in the morning when they're eating like their oatmeal or something, they can sit in there, they can eat their oatmeal, they can drink their tea or coffee. But then there is also like a little doll's house in the corner, a few toy boxes. There is just some other stuff that kids can do in other rooms apart from like their bedroom. And then as well as that, there is also like another dining room space as well. But then as well as that, there is also probably my favourite laundry space, I kid you not, that I've ever done, because the laundry space in this house, I tried to make it look like they've got a functioning ironing board. I'm not joking, I am so chuffed with myself. Like when I did this, I was thinking, why have I never done this before? So you know the Laundry Day stuff pack? Well, in the Laundry Day stuff pack, we've got like a washing machine, we've got a tumble dryer, but then we also got some wall decorations and just kind of like general bits and bobs for your Sims to go into their utility rooms, like next to their washing machine and stuff. But we got this wall decoration, which is an ironing board. And basically, when I was in the middle of decorating the utility room, something occurred to me thinking, why don't I make it look like something has been kind of like pulled down from the wall, and the ironing board is what you pull down, and kind of like your Sims can put it down and then sit on a bar stool and do some ironing. And you know, I'm so chuffed with the way it turned out. Honestly, I'm so excited to actually move on into that room, because you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I feel like this is kind of like a given, but it's not functioning. It's just purely for decoration. But I'm just so happy with myself. Like, I don't know why I've never thought about this before, but yeah, it's my favourite laundry room I think I've ever decorated. But then as well as that, there is also kind of like a home office, and then like general house stuff, so like a kitchen, a lounge space, multiple bathrooms, and then just, you know, other bits and bobs here and there. But yeah, the laundry space in this house is, it's up there for me. It's like one of my favourite areas in the whole entire thing. But anyway, moving on from that and actually getting back and talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm currently moving over and doing the garden. Now, I actually did this in a bit of a backwards way, because if you're familiar with my channel or you watch my videos fairly frequently, you might be familiar with kind of like my video structure. Now, what I mean by that is every single week when I upload a video, I try and do my videos in kind of like a similar formation, just because I find it so much easier to kind of like follow along. So what I normally do is I normally start off by building the main structure of the house, you know, like the actual shell. I'll do the roofing, I'll do the floor plan, the wallpapering, the windows, and then I'll basically focus on the front garden, do all the front garden landscaping. If there's a driveway, decorate the drive, you know, all the different like areas of the front pretty much. And then once I've done that, I then will move over to the back garden landscaping, do all the back garden landscaping, and then actually get into furnishing the back garden. That is more so my kind of like routine, if you want to put it that way, for all of my different videos. No matter what I'm building, where I'm building, I always like to follow kind of like a little bit of a structure, because that way as well, I feel like for you, it's probably easier to follow along with. Like if you watch me like every single week, say for instance, I feel like you can easily follow along with my videos that way, because I normally do it 9 times out of 10 in that kind of like routine, in that kind of order. But for this video, I don't know what happened. I just kind of, it went out the window. So basically what I did is I did the little driveway bit with the barn door, what I was talking about, and then I did the pathway, like the terrain paint. But then I wanted to follow the terrain paint from the front garden going into the back garden. And so when I did that, I then decided to, okay, well, let's actually fence in the back garden so I know what space I'm working with. And I fenced in. But then I just started placing down objects, and then I just got a little bit excited and just kind of got a little bit ahead of myself, started doing a tiny bit of back garden landscaping, and then the thought occurred to me, hang on, you haven't even done the front garden landscaping yet. And so I kind of like jumped in between where I was. But yeah, I did part of the back garden landscaping already. I've just kind of like finishing up the front garden landscaping now. But yeah, it was a bit of a out of routine kind of method for me this week. But I was just really excited to actually get in and start placing down all kind of like farm-like items. I love building farms in the game, and I also really like playing with the Cottage Living expansion pack. Like farming is my kind of gameplay style. I love getting my Sims to do gardening, tend to chickens, like the llamas and the cow shed. It's just, that is my kind of thing. And so whenever I build them, I just get really excited. But also something that I feel like I should mention, you might have noticed it, I did decide to make a bit of a custom animal shed in this back garden. Now I have done this before, I think only one time off memory. I'm trying to think, but I'm pretty sure I've only ever done it one time previously. But basically we only have one animal shed that comes with the Cottage Living expansion pack, and it's great and it's beautiful if you want to use it in the world of Parenthood and Bagley. But the thing is that I find with it, it's very restricting, because the actual style of the animal shed is very cottagey, it's very rustic, and it's great if you're building in Henfield and Bagley. But if you want to build something that's a little bit in a different style, it can be quite hard to fit in. And so what I decided to do in this video is I decided to make kind of like a little custom animal shed, kind of like a custom barn for the animals, if you want to call it that way. Now I have mentioned this before, but basically there is this tutorial on YouTube which is by Sadie Sim. Absolutely phenomenal builder, I'm not joking. If you're into like medieval kind of builds and castles and just watching people do absolutely amazing things with the game that you didn't even think would be possible and you can't even fathom, honestly, they are your person. Like, they are just so good with all of the different build tutorials that they do. Like, I watched one, I can't remember how long ago it was, but they basically built like a little carriage, you know, like Cinderella, and you've got the pumpkin. They built a carriage and they're absolutely amazing. Basically, besides the point, they have got a how to build an animal shed tutorial on YouTube, and basically they show you how to actually make like a custom animal shed. I've used this method before in the past. I'll link their video in the description box down below. Please go and check them out, because they're absolutely just, they're so brilliant. Like, how do people actually think of these things? But basically I used that video and kind of followed along with it and taught myself how to, I say taught myself, I have done it previously but haven't done it in a while, so I did have to refresh my brain a little bit. But basically built like a custom animal shed in a more modern style, because I didn't want to use the one that came with the Cottage Living expansion pack, because it is quite cottagey and I wanted to build, you know, a modern farmhouse. It just didn't pass the kind of like vibe that I wanted for this house. And so you would have seen that I've already built part of it. I will carry on and move over into it and actually get into actually placing the animals in a bit, but in terms of the actual structure of it, you've seen that I've already built kind of like the placement of it. I've built the walls and I've built the roof, but you actually see me place down the animals and actually how to build the animal shed in just a second. But currently I'm just going around and actually furnishing the back garden. So in the back garden itself, as well as the animal sheds, we also end up having a chicken coop in the same kind of area. In the middle section there ends up being a swimming pool, which at first I placed it down and I was thinking, is this just too out of place? Like, I'm building a farm and there's literally a swimming pool next to quite literal cows and llamas and chickens. I was thinking, is this a little bit too out of place? But then I really liked it because a lot of people like having swimming pools in their Sims back gardens because you can get all the Sims like swim together, swim some laps, and it's an extra gameplay thing. And with the amount of space that I had in between kind of like the vegetable patches and the actual animal farm area, it was too much of a big space just to place down like a barbecue area and a seating table. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to place down a swimming pool. If you don't think that it fits in, you can 100% delete it. But yeah, there ends up being a swimming pool in this back garden, as well as some sun lounges, a little barbecue area. And then there is also that massive vegetable patch in the corner. You can just see, just on the other side of kind of like where this upper porch bit is, I placed down, I think like 10 or 11 different vegetable patches. I did already fill them in with pumpkins and watermelons, and I also think lettuces. Feel free to delete them. I just placed them in more so just for the screenshots because I wanted the screenshots to be really beautiful and just have all these different vegetables growing, but feel free to delete them. And also the same goes for the animals, which I know I'm currently furnishing this upper porch area, but I wanted to mention it on kind of like the same token about the plants in this house, because whenever I build anything that's got a garden, whether it just be like planters or maybe vegetable patches or something, I always like to place down gardening things in them, or like plants, so like herbs or oversized vegetables, oversized crops, just because one, it looks pretty for the screenshots, but two, if it's like an individual planter, I like to play test them as well, because if you're not familiar, I literally play test every single centimetre of every single one of my builds. Like, I will go in and I'll get my sim to sit on every single seat, I'll get them to sit on every single toilet, test every single mirror. Honestly, my playtest sim, their acting skill is top notch, because whenever I get my sims to playtest mirrors, which is every single one in every single build that I do, I get them to practice their acting. And so my little playtesting sim, they've got such a high acting skill from purely just being a playtesting sim and practicing acting in front of a mirror. But besides the point, yeah, I playtest absolutely everything, so every single centimetre of my builds, and that also includes like oversized crop fields and the planters. So when it comes around to uploading them to the gallery, normally them plants transfer over. Also, on the same token, the animals transfer over to the gallery as well. Please feel free to delete them. I'm not going to be offended. I remember when I first uploaded my first ever farm, which was the huge family farm I built in the world of Henford and Bagley. I remember I placed down a bunch of different chickens, I think a cow and a llama, but I had a crazy amount of chickens, and someone told me that they couldn't play in the build purely because there was too many chickens and too many animals running about, and it was too much of a handful, and I didn't realise that they transferred over. But yeah, feel free to delete them. I more so just place down like chickens and llamas and cows and stuff. One, for the screenshots, and two, just to make sure, you can actually interact with that object. And plus, the way that I actually built the animal sheds, you actually have to buy the cow and then the llama and then like try and find a placement for them within the little custom made shed, if you get what I mean. But yeah, you can delete them, feel free to. But anyway, getting back and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm actually going around and furnishing the inside of this little custom made animal shed that I made. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth about how you actually do this, because there is a tutorial which I am going to link to, but pretty much to cut a very long story short, you basically have to build a basement, and then in the basement itself you place down all the objects that you want to be in front of the animal shed. So for instance, I placed down like a little stool, which I imagine when your sims want to milk the cows, they sit on that little stool. I also placed down like a little llama brush for when you want to brush the llama's hair. There is also, I think, a little trimmer as well on the same token when you want to give the llama a haircut. There's like little trimmers for it. But all of that kind of stuff you need to place down into the basement, because otherwise, when it comes around to actually gameplay, the llama and the cow, they kind of like freak out. They don't know where to walk. I did actually do it a little bit wrong in this video, because I was just so excited about actually putting out all these different like debug and live edit menu items. I didn't place every single one into the basement, but when it actually came around to playtesting at this little animal farm area, I made sure to actually go back and place them in a way so the cow and llama, they're not going to get confused. And yeah, the whole entire thing works absolutely fine, so you're not going to run into any problems in gameplay. I've playtested the whole entire house. I ran into like a few different issues here and there in terms of on the inside there might be like a plant too close to a chair, or as in like a doll's house was too close to a wardrobe, just smaller things like that, which if it was that kind of scenario, all I had to do was like move it over by like an inch or something and then I was good. But yeah, apart from that, everything in this house works absolutely fine. So if you do want to download it, you shouldn't run into any problems. But anyway, moving on and actually getting back and talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I just finished up the back garden area and now I'm moving on back to the front garden, but I'm just doing this little porch area just before we move on into the inside. There doesn't end up being too much in this area just because I didn't really know what to add in. I added in these little like barrels, which these ones over here by that little plant which is from Laundry Day, them barrels are from the high school years expansion pack and I think they're in the live edit menu or it's the debug menu, but I know they're from the high school years expansion pack. I used them just dotted about all over the whole entire build because where I was building like a farmhouse, even though it was modern, I still wanted it to be a little bit more of rustic modern, if you get what I mean. I still wanted there to be like barrels and like little bits and bobs here and there that still kind of relate to a farmhouse, and I feel like barrels do. And so I use a few different barrels in the back garden and I'll plop down some like plants and flowers into them, try and make them look like an actual flower bed rather than just like a random barrel filled with mud. But then on the upper porch bit, I placed down like a little seating area. You can probably get your Sims to come out here, maybe like do their homework or something, read a book, drink a cup of tea, whatever you fancy. On the back garden porch, I ended up placing down one of them little trays where your Sims can actually like make lemonade and stuff. And then there is also an art easel and then I think a flower arranging table as well as some planters on the back garden porch. But in terms of actual activities on this house, both on the inside and the outside, I feel like your Sims are never going to get bored because honestly there is just so much to do. Plus in terms of all of that, we've also got the garage space, which I know I've already said only has 2 gameplay things, but if you wanted to, you could definitely just change that room, maybe add like a candle making station in there, maybe like a darts board. Both are things that I did debate doing when I was actually furnishing the garage, but I thought, you know what, doesn't really make too much sense, and I did want it to feel like an actual authentic farmhouse and also like an authentic kind of like little barn for the farm, and so I did decide to leave them out. But if you want to download it and you want to change it and add different bits and bobs here and there, please feel free to. But you can see that I've now moved on into the inside of this house. Started off by the front door, and you might notice already this house on the inside, it's very white. So for my main mission basically when I came into this, it was like, okay, I want to build a modern farmhouse. I want it to be very white on the inside. I want it to be all white paneling or like grey paneling, subway tiles, maybe like an exposed brick here and there. I also want there to be this really beautiful floor that we've got from the Jungle Adventure game pack. I was debating using this on the outside porch, but then I remembered that I'd probably want to use it on the inside, and so I decided to use a base game flooring for the outside porch. But I really wanted the inside of this house to be as light and bright as I could possible. So you can see that I've already moved over and I started furnishing the kitchen. In the kitchen, would you believe I actually used Jungle Adventure counters, which probably sounds sarcastic. It's actually not sarcastic. I never use these. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I used these in a build. And if I ever do use the Jungle Adventure counters, I will always use them in the default swatch because that's kind of like my favourite swatch of these counters. But when it came around to doing this kitchen, I was thinking, okay, well, what counter could I use? And I was debating using the one that's from the Cottage Living expansion pack, where it's kind of like white cupboard doors, but then the top portion of it is kind of like a lighter oak, kind of like wooden kind of effect. I love that counter, but the thing is, I feel like I've been using that quite a lot recently, and so I thought, well, let's not use that. Let's use another counter in a similar kind of like light swatch. And then I remember that we've got these Jungle Adventure counters, and yeah, I never use these. I feel bad because they're not a bad counter. It's just I don't like the overhead cabinets. So the ones that I'm talking about, you know, when you place down like a counter onto the wall and then above it you put down the cabinets, the Jungle Adventure one, for some reason, a lot of the different versions of the cabinet have like orange and blue bowls in them. And I like it when sometimes you can see like china, like plates and bowls and stuff in them overhead cabinets, but I don't want them to be colourful. Like, I'd rather just have like a white bowl or like black bowls or something, just because I don't know, I don't want there to be like bright orange bowls in my Sims kitchens. And so when it comes around to ever using these counters, I normally just think, nah, I'm not going to bother with it because I don't like the cabinets, and I just normally leave it. But for this build, I decided, you know what, I am going to use them, and I'm really happy that I did, because it feels a little bit different from this kitchen to something that I would normally tend to go towards. But in the kitchen itself, it is quite a big space. So your Sims will walk in, they've got 2 ovens and 2 fridges. I really was thinking that this household would have, them really oversized fridges that have like an obscene amount of space in them. I was thinking that the Sims that live in this household, they would have one of them, because they are living on a farm. Their cow produces milk, their chickens produce eggs, their llama, the llama produces wool. They can't really do much in terms of the fridge department, but they've got a lot of farmy stuff. And so I was thinking they're going to have a massive fridge. But unfortunately, we only have 1 tile fridges in The Sims 4 without any custom content. And so I thought, I'm just going to put 2 together and make it look like one big fridge. Why not do the same thing with the oven? And that's exactly what I did. I just used some base game ones and they worked out perfectly. But then in the kitchen itself, as well as having the cabinets in the wall, I also placed down some little shelving units, placed down like some books onto there, some spices, like little bits and bobs. And then I went to town with the clutter. So I spent so much time in the debug menu just trying to pull out anything that I feel like would be in a modern farmhouse kitchen. Some of the stuff I do use quite regularly in some of my other builds, but then I place down, like for instance, like a little milk, I was about to say milk carton, but it's actually milk tin thing. I use it on the outside as well by the little animal sheds, but it's basically when cows produce milk in real life, doesn't happen in the game, but in real life, you put them in them little like metal canister, is that the right word for it? Do you know what I'm talking about? I place some of them down in the kitchen. Normally don't do that in my normal like suburban family home builds, but as we're building a farm, I feel like this household would just use the milk that comes from the cows outside. But also in the kitchen, there ends up being like 2 little food bowls. There also ends up being some hanging plants in the corner. I did forget a bin, but when it came around to playtesting, I did remind myself, and so I did make sure to add in a bin. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into one of my favourite rooms probably ever created, to be honest with you, and that is the laundry room. Well, I mean, I say that, it's probably a bit of an over-exaggeration, but I am very happy with the way that this room turned out. So hopefully you can see what I was talking about when I meant I tried to make it look like there was a functioning ironing board that's kind of like been pulled down from the wall or something. So basically I came into this room, placed down the washing machine, the tumble dryer, as kind of like normal practice, placed down this shelving unit above the wall. But normally whenever I place down any like laundry room activities or stuff, I normally just filter by the laundry day stuff pack, just because then I don't have to go through all the different categories trying to pull out all the different like decorations and stuff. Normally I just get it to the whole entire stuff pack is just in front of me. And when I was doing that, for some reason, which is bizarre because I literally place down laundry rooms into pretty much every single one of the builds that I do, but for some reason I was looking at the ironing board and I was thinking that would be really great if I could try and make it look like that's been pulled down from the wall. And then the idea just came to me and I literally just placed down a side table, connected it to another side table which was a little bit longer. I then placed down the actual ironing board itself, kind of like floating in the middle of the room. The reason why I did that is because where it's a wall decoration, it will automatically clip to the wall and I didn't want that to happen. So I placed it down so it was floating, and then using the tool mod, I then rotated it so then it was kind of like laying flat, elevated it up, and then using the gravity pull feature, I was able to actually gravity pull it into the little side table and try and make it look like a little functioning ironing board. I then also found a little laundry day debug item, which is meant to be kind of like a little, kind of like a pitcher, like a metal pitcher. I placed that down onto like the side table as well. I was thinking it could be an iron, or like something like that. It kind of looks like an iron. But then I also placed down a little bar stool in front of the side table, and I was thinking that maybe one of the parents of this household, instead of standing up and hurting their back for hours doing the ironing, maybe they sit at the bar stool and they look out into the window, because basically directly behind where I tried to create this like little functioning looking ironing area, there is a window that looks directly onto the garden. Your Sims have just got a view of the vegetable patch and like the swimming pool area. I was thinking that your Sims could like maybe sit in the bar stool and do the ironing on like a Sunday morning or something like that. I just thought that was really sweet. I really hope that one day we could get some sort of like ironing function, or like even like a lawnmower or something. I think someone did tell me once upon a time that there is a lawn mowing mod, I believe anyway, which I still am yet to actually check out. But yeah, I really hope that one day we can actually get some more of them kind of things in the game, because I love getting my Sims to do the really boring stuff in real life. Like I love getting my Sims to do the laundry. I love getting my Sims to hoover, even though Buster Dust has been broken for literal months at this point, and I miss it because I love getting my Sims to run around the house or the apartment with a little hoover and clean up all the dust and all the dust bunnies. But I love getting my Sims to do very boring stuff in real life in the game. I find so much enjoyment out of it. But yeah, I really hope that one day we could actually get like an ironing function. I highly doubt it, because I feel like the only one pack that they would do that would be like a laundry pack, and we've already got that. So I don't know. I hope also we get a return of stuff packs, because it's been, I think, like over a year, or maybe even over 2 years now, since we had, I think it's actually 2 years since the last stuff pack, which was the Paranormal Stuff pack, and I miss stuff packs so much. But anyway, that's a completely different subject. Moving on, as you can see, I finished up the laundry room, quickly did the little informal dining room and also playroom area. So in there I placed down a round table, which is from laundry day, and then I placed down some cats and dogs like little chairs to match it. And then in the actual room itself I placed down like a fireplace, a doll's house, also placed down a bookcase, and also I think a little toy box in the corner. I was more so thinking, on a morning, that's where your Sims would go and have like their morning coffee, or maybe when the parents are getting their kids ready to go to school, they'd maybe sit in there and get them to eat all their breakfast. And there is also a more formal dining room, which you can see I'm just now moving over to. I say now moving over to, I'm actually going around just placing some curtains around, but you can see that I've now moved on to. But this is the more formal one where I imagine if your Sims were having like house parties, or maybe Harvest Fest or Winterfest, or just like them kind of like big family things, or maybe like when relatives come to stay, maybe that's where they all eat together as a family. Maybe that's where they have like their Sunday roast on every single Sunday or something. I don't really know, but yeah, it was just kind of like a more formal dining room space. In there ends up being like a really big table. End up using the chairs that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, like a china cabinet, the armchair in the corner, an odd plant also in the corner, and then also like a little side table. But now I've moved over into lounge space. So both the dining room, which you just saw me do, and this space, I actually decorated completely twice. So I originally finished up the like little playroom dining room area, and then I moved over into furnishing the dining room, which you just saw me do, the more formal one. And originally I did that room and then the lounge room, completely different to what they actually end up turning out and what you can see now. So I basically went down a completely different route for some reason, and at one point when I was furnishing the inside of this build, I thought, why not try out a darker colour scheme, which completely defeats the object of coming in and wanting to build something that was really light and bright on the inside. On the dining room, I placed down like really dark wooden chairs, a dark table, like massive china cabinets that are really dark brown. It was not it. And then I moved over into the lounge room, and I followed over that same idea. Originally, the first time I decorated this lounge room, I used the industrial loft kit sofas, the leather ones. I used them ones. I used like a really fluffy rug, and I finished it and I looked at it and I thought, this is not the route that I wanted the inside of this house to be, and so I deleted it and then I redid it, and I'm really happy that I did, because I really like the way that it ended up turning out the second time round. But yeah, I did want to mention it did take me 2 attempts to fully furnish this lounge space. But in here, I decided to use the Desert Luxe kit. Nearly said Desert Luxe kit. The Desert Luxe kit sofa, which is a 3-seater one. And originally, I actually used it on the outside back garden porch, which you might notice. And it was like that for a long time. But then when I actually came round the second time round to actually furnish in this lounge space, I was trying to pick out a sofa, which was kind of like a comfy but modern farmhousey kind of sofa, which we don't really have many of them, and so I was really limited on the choices. And so I thought, do you know what, let's just pick something that's quite plain, quite basic, because then I feel like I can maybe style around it and then make it feel a little bit more like farmhousey. But the thing is, we don't really have that many plain sofas in the game as well, even though The Sims 4 is how many years old, and we don't really have that many plain beige sofas, like without like any fancy swatches of like blankets or pillows or something, just like a basic cream sofa or white sofa. I think off memory we have like 3 or something. We're really limited, and so the one that I happened to want to use was the one from the Desert Luxe kit, but I already used it outside on like the garden porch area, and so I thought, well, I can't use the same sofa on the inside as well as the outside, and so I did decide to switch up the sofa on the outside porch. So I just placed down one that is from the Cats and Dogs. It's kind of like a little wooden bench, and then I also placed down like another armchair just to kind of like fill out that space, and then that way I could use a 3-seater sofa in the lounge room, and then it wouldn't be like the same sofa on the inside of the house as well as the outside the house, if you get what I mean. But in that room I placed down a big fireplace, which is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. Also placed down a really big coffee table. The one that I've used is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and honestly I can't tell you a single time that I've placed down that coffee table and I've kept it to its original size, because it is so massive. And don't get me wrong, if you've got like a really big lounge space or like a really big like outside deck area and you want to fill it out, it's a great item to use. But I really wanted to use it in this house because it kind of matched the modern farmhouse that I was going for, but it was just absolutely massive. And so I decided to size it down a little bit. And something that I did, which I kind of want to explain, is I used standing lamps as the barrier for where to place the clutter. Because if you're not aware, whenever you size down any object in the game, no matter it be like a desk, a side table, a coffee table, no matter what it is, whenever you size something down, if you then want to place down, say for example, a plant onto this size down object, the plant won't go to the new size down height. It will automatically place to the original height of the object. So say for example, I'm placing down a side table and I want to place down a lamp onto it, but the side table is a little bit too big and I want to size it down, which in The Sims 4, I don't know why, but they've got this thing with making side tables absolutely massive in this game. I don't know why they did it, but all the side tables just seem to be abnormally large in this game. But say for instance, I'm sizing down a little side table, I want to pop a lamp onto it. If I size down this side table and I go to auto place a lamp, the lamp won't just like automatically go to the new height of it. It will be floating, and the reason why it's floating is because it's sitting in the original slot for that object. So the reason why I use standing lamps is because to get around this, I basically then move the coffee table out of the way, but before I do that, I place down these standing lamps in basically the corners of the coffee table, just as kind of like a rough guide. You can see that I'm doing it over here in the home office for the desk area, but basically I place these lamps down on the edges of the objects that I want to clutter up as kind of like a rough barrier for myself, so I know, right, you can clutter up on the inside of this area, don't put anything outside the area because it's going to be floating basically. And so then I basically use the red shelf. I then find the exact height of this new size down object using the red shelf. Like I kind of get it to this certain point, and then I basically put all the clutter onto the red shelf, move it away so then it's at this new height of the coffee table. I place it on the inside of where these standing lamps are in kind of like this empty floating space. I then put the coffee table back, and then it looks like all of the different clutter is now on this new size down coffee table. Delete the lamps, and yeah, that's kind of like the way that I do it. But I do this in pretty much every single one of my builds, not for like coffee tables, but you just saw I did it in the home office when I wanted to like move something out of the way. For like the desk, I wanted to like place down some more clutter onto it, but I placed down some standing lamps again, kind of like as a barrier for myself. I then also placed down a standing lamp in the middle of the desk because there was a computer there, and I wanted to make sure, right, don't place anything over this side because there is a computer in this area, so you can place anything kind of like to the left of that, if you want to put it that way. And yeah, that is the reason why I place a load of different standing lamps and then delete them. I really hope that makes sense, but basically, to cut a very long story short and basically to summarise what I just said, I use lamps as a barrier and kind of like a guideline of, Jessica, don't place anything outside these lamps. You can place something on the inside, but you can't place anything on the outside. Basically why I do that. But yeah, I do this in pretty much every single one of my builds, and I normally always forget about it. And then someone always asks me why I do it, and I've just become so prone to doing it now. I do it literally all the time that I forget I'm even doing it half the time. But yeah, it's a really handy little, I was about to say trick, it's not really a trick, kind of like a method to cluttering. Really handy little method. But anyway, moving on from that, as you would have seen, I just quickly did the little home office downstairs. That home office I did struggle a little bit with because I really didn't know what to put on the back wall. And then I remembered that we had this really nice big, I say big enough shelf that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, and it was quite modern, but then it also had this really nice like dark brown swatch, and I thought I could try and make it work. And so I placed that as kind of like the background for if your sim was on like a Zoom call or something, that is all of the different Zoom call participants, that is what they're going to be seeing. But then also in there I end up placing down like a little side table, an armchair. That was pretty much it for the home office. And then like I said already, I did also do a little garage space, but like I've already said, I decided to cut it out just because on the inside there only ends up being the woodworking table and then the seasons decoration box, and then there is no other gameplay items. It is just purely decorative, the rest of it. But then you would have seen I quickly just did the first bathroom in this house. Now, like I've already mentioned, there ends up being 3 bathrooms in this house, but like always, I only ever show the furnishing for one, just because if I show the furnishing for every single bathroom, 1, it would be too repetitive, and 2, it would add so much time onto this video. And so I only show you the bathroom for like the ensuite for the parents' bedroom, because weirdly enough, all the different bathrooms in this house were like the exact same size and shape. Like the other two were the same size, perfect squares. And I find that trying to do a bathroom, it's really easy sometimes if it's a bit of an obscure shape. Like I love it when I've got like a little indent to work with, or like a little bump out, because then you can really like build the shower around that, or maybe do kind of like a nice little built-in unit for the sink area. Sometimes I find decorating square bathrooms to be quite difficult, but the bathroom for the ensuite, or like the ensuite bathroom, was a bit of a hickledy-pickledy shape, and so I decided to show the furnishing of that one. But then you would also see me do the parents' bedroom, and I've now moved on into the nursery. I've just realised I forgot to mention, up until this point, all the different rooms and how I decorated all different 5 bedrooms in this house. So if you're curious, we are about to move on to the rest of them, but I decorated the rooms to be, for the set of parents, like we've already gathered, one room for a baby, which very out of the ordinary for me. I never do object baby bedrooms because you can literally place them into a corner and they'll be fine. Like, they don't need anything. Like, this is going to sound absolutely dreadful, and I'm very much aware how bad this is going to sound. But if you really wanted to, in your game, you could place down a object baby crib into the animal shed outside in the farm. Wouldn't make a difference to the baby. Like, it literally would not faze the baby whatsoever. You could place it down onto the outside porch and there could be an absolute massive blizzard, like a snowstorm happening. Wouldn't affect the baby, because the baby is literally an object. And so when it comes around to doing bedrooms, where they're an object and they're not actually something that I can interact with and actually have like a personality like to work towards, or like my Sims, they can't really become mates with a baby, because they can have a relationship, like they can form a relationship if they coo at them and they can snuggle them, and they can change their nappy here and there. But in terms of actually having a general personality, they're literally just, they're pointless. So I never actually do bedrooms for object babies. I'm so excited for when we get this infant update, which I think is, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 13th of March, is that correct? I know we get in the new expansion pack March 16th, I believe. I think or maybe it's like March 14th we're getting the infant update then, because I think we're getting the infant update on the Tuesday in March, like the second week of March, and then we're getting the actual expansion pack, the Growing Together expansion pack, on Thursday, I believe, anyway. I really should know this. Honestly, I've watched the trailer about 100 times because I'm so excited. I find it a little bit bizarre as well, because I've barely been talking about this new expansion pack that we're due to have in such a short period of time. But to be honest, half the reason why I haven't been speaking about it is because I don't want to speak about it and then get us all excited and then have to wait. Like, I don't want to, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't, even though I keep on watching the trailer, I'm just kind of like tormenting myself because I'm seeing all these new like gameplay things, all these different like bits and pieces, like relatives coming over to stay, tree houses being built, the beautiful new world, like puzzles. We're getting puzzles in the game. I'm pretty sure we're getting dominoes, but not the pizza, the actual game dominoes. I'm pretty sure we're getting dominoes. I'm just excited for this new expansion pack, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to get myself really excited and then want to play with it and then I can't play with it right now. Do you know what I mean? So I have been not avoiding talking about it, but I've been trying not to work myself up in terms of the excitement. But you best believe in a month's time I'm going to be like bouncing off the walls with just pure excitement. We haven't even seen the new world yet. I'm so excited to see the new world of, I think, please don't use me as your reference for how you pronounce this. I think it's called San Sequoia, but I don't know because I've heard so many people pronounce that so differently. I think it just depends on where you're from and your accent and how you pronounce things, because some people pronounce the world of how I say it, Selva Dorada, differently, and like what's it called? Pomegranate. Well, what's it called? Magnolia Promenade. How did I get pomegranate from Magnolia Promenade? Either way, everyone pronounces things differently, but we haven't even seen the new world yet. Like, we haven't even seen the map. And I'm filled with utter excitement and I cannot wait, but I don't want to like just talk about it and then get myself excited like I am right now and then come into my game tonight and then realise I don't have it and then just be a little bit sad. But anyway, we're getting it soon and that's the most important part. Besides the point, this house, it has a bedroom for an object baby. It also has a toddler bedroom. 2 children share a room, so there's kind of like a bunk bedroom, and then there is also a teenager's bedroom as well. And by the way, half the reason why I wanted to place down a nursery for an object baby in this house is I was thinking, if you wanted to download it now, have your family playing it for a little bit, and then maybe when the infant update comes out, you wanted to get your Sims to, you know, have another baby, there is already a little nursery for object baby, and then once the object baby ages up, you've then got a space for an infant. And so yeah, that was part of the reason why I did it. But anyway, moving on from that and actually getting back to the video, as you can see, I've already come in, I've already done the toddler's room, already done the kids' room, and now I'm moving on into the last room, which is the room for a teenager. So in here, I decided to use, eventually in the end, because I took my time deciding, but I eventually decided to use the bed that we got from the high school years expansion pack. There ends up being a fireplace in this room, mainly because on the exterior there is a chimney in this like placement on the other side of the wall, and so I wanted it to kind of be as realistic as I could. And so I placed down a little fireplace into here. There is also a computer desk in the corner, a little like chest of drawers area, the odd plant in the corner. But yeah, I had a real hard time trying to decide on what bed to use. Originally I was going to use a base game bed, and then I changed the swatch of it and I still wasn't liking it, and so I thought I'm just going to go with this high school years like bed because I know it works, I know that I like it for teenagers' rooms, and there's a load of different swatches that I can choose from. And so yeah, I decided to use it, and now I'm just going around the room finishing it off, add some final touches, and that is basically it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in my next Sims 4 speedboarding video. Bye guys.